Thank you, Chris. Well, welcome. I am Leah Campbell, and welcome to my second and final chapel service. I know, right? Who knew? So welcome to you joining us via live stream. Welcome to everyone here. And I have two special people I would like to welcome, Reverend Lonnie Vanderslice and Julie Carmichael. So welcome to both of you. So we'll open with prayer. Infinite Spirit, inspire us not only look to our own needs, but also to look to the needs of others. Inspire us to look within, to examine our hearts. Are we doing all that we can to help those in need, those who are less fortunate? Are we using the gifts that we have been given? Are we giving of our time, our talent, and our treasure? And as we hold the Christ within each one of us, in everyone, inspire us to serve with love and with compassion. Inspire us to serve willingly and not grudgingly. Inspire us to serve as Jesus, our way-shower, served. Amen. Philippians 2:4 reads, "Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others." And that is my goal here today, for you to not only look to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. So when I was preparing for my second and final chapel service, I have to put that in, right? Final chapel service. I knew I wanted to have an alternative service. I wanted my service to focus on social action and service to the community. And so with that in mind, I approached Dean Ted and asked if I could have a guest speaker. And he said, yes, I could. So then I approached Reverend Claudel and asked her if she knew of anyone who would be willing to come and speak and help me spread the word, so to speak. And she came up with a list. She had a few people I could contact. And then she said, well, what about Lonnie Vanderslice? And I said, cool, yeah, I'll give Lonnie a call. She should know someone. And so I did. Thank you, Lonnie. I did. I emailed Lonnie, and I got a response rather quickly. And she had one name, Julie Carmichael. And so we met, the three of us, along with my coordinator, Gregory, we met. And while I was speaking to them and learning all about Amethyst Place, I realized, well, Lonnie has to be a part of this. She has to be a part of delivering the message. So now I have two guest speakers. So I go back to Dean Ted. Oh, Dean Ted, I have a second guest speaker. And he was okay with that. I knew I needed to have both if I was to get an effective message of service across. Jesus taught about love and compassion and about serving the needy. And my message is about serving those in need and serving with empathy and serving with compassion and serving with love. And Matthew 4:18-22 tells us that while Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Peter and Andrew, and he called to them to follow him. And further along, he saw two more brothers, James and John, and he called them to follow him as well. And he knew when he picked his disciples, He was looking for people, I am sure, with compassion, traits that Jesus had that would carry on his ministry. His ministry of teaching, of healing, of preaching, and of doing those things with compassion and with empathy and with love. And an organization that is serving our community with compassion and with empathy is Amethyst Place. And I now have Julie Carmichael, who is the Director of Relations, of Programs at Amethyst Place. Julie?
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Amethyst Place has been caring for some of the most vulnerable women and children since 2000. We're located at 27th and Troost. We're 38 apartment units. We have about 100 women and children on campus every day, 65 kids, half of those under 5. If you like babies, we got them. Come hold them. There's a lot of them. When you ask our executive director, how many kids we have, she says, I think it's 1,000, because sometimes it feels that way. But we are recovery housing for women who are addicts, and they come to us homeless with a few trash bags of all of their belongings. They're provided a fully furnished, fully decorated apartment. We have an on-site therapist. We have a jobs program. We have tutors that work with our moms in GED. We have 14 moms in college, first in their families to do so. We just throw the book of supports at our women. And we, as a result of that, we have a pretty good success rate. But what's really important for our women is the people who come. We get lots of things. I volunteered a long time ago for Sister Bird at Operation Breakthrough, and she said one day, she goes, you know, Julie, our moms have lots of things. What they don't have are people who care about them. And I thought, oh, well, how hard can that be? I'll start a mentoring program. And started that in 2009, and that program has now got 25 moms and 50 mentors in it, and it's run out of Amethyst Place. It's called Encompass. It's a great opportunity for 2 women to come who are friends and model a healthy relationship for our moms. Our typical client is, again, a woman who's been chronically homeless. She's 30 years old. She has 2 kids, probably both under 7. She's a high school dropout. She rides the bus. She doesn't have a car. Not a lot of hope there for her. In the beginning, she doesn't much trust that we care about her because, frankly, nobody ever has. Lots of them have been victims of domestic violence. Lots of them have been prostitutes. They have some really horrific stories to share, but they're all swimming to the boat. They really are sick of being sick and they want to change. And so our whole goal is to remove every barrier to their success if we possibly can. To really understand, though, the challenges that we're facing, I am really more comfortable with statistics than anything else. So I've created a graph of zip codes for you. There is no better predictor of how long you will live, of your own mortality, than your zip code. And internationally, your latitude and longitude. So what that tells us is, if place is the biggest predictor of how long you will live, then we have structures there that we've built, and what we have built we can break down. So I shared this a long time ago with my daughter's Girl Scout troop when we were going to go volunteer at Operation Breakthrough, and I compared the zip code we lived in, 66219, to Operation Breakthrough zip code 64109. And you can see, as I told the girls, that in all likelihood, these girls that I had in my car lived in a household with married parents, 2 married parents who had bachelor degrees or higher, and making a median income, household income of $69,000. In 64109, a 15, 20-minute drive away, very few households have 2 parents. Bachelor degree of higher is only 17%. And the median household income in that zip code is $22,000. On the bottom row everywhere you want the bar to be low, that green bar for 64109 is high. So much higher rates of poverty and students receiving free and reduced lunch. Much more density, which actually matters because, there's not a lot of green space, there's not a lot of parks, there's not a lot of outside safe places to go and play and run, and much higher rates of violent crime. The likelihood that my daughter would ever see any kind of violence is pretty low. But these kids come and they have seen some really horrific things, and the moms have seen it as well. So my message to the kids was, the only difference between you and them is that you were lucky enough to be born in a different zip code. And that points to me to be structures that we have built and we need to break down. I have evolved over time with my own volunteering work to really come to believe that the key to that is mentoring. Every program I've ever created has had a mentoring component to it, and I think it was born of, again, Sister Berta saying, they have a lot of things, Julie, what they don't have is people who care about them. If you grew up in a family whose parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents never went to college, didn't know how to value education, you're not going to see that as a vision for yourself because you're not surrounded by that. My kids never questioned whether or not they were going to college. It wasn't even a discussion we had. They just knew they would be, but that's how they grew up. So the connecting zip codes that needs to happen is providing that vision and that hope for something different and something better. As Leah said in her introduction, to serve with compassion and sympathy and empathy, all of those words have as their base pathos, which means to suffer. So to have compassion, to have sympathy, to have empathy, you have to be right there on the path with them, suffering with them, and understanding, literally standing under them and finding out what's best for them. I wanted to tell you the story of a mom I mentored named Tidra. She was at Operation Breakthrough. Trim and Med had come in and did a whole cooking class. And we're teaching the moms how to buy healthy food and cook these meals and freeze them for later on. And the moms, were getting into it and they were enjoying it. And not too long after that, I was at Tidra's house taking care of her. She'd had to have 14 teeth pulled, which is like a whole nother problem. And I was in her kitchen, and her refrigerator was about this tall. And when I opened it, it had an interior freezer. Have you seen these with the little flappy door? So it's like about this big. 2 of her 4 burners didn't work. Her stove didn't work. And when I tried to find a pot of water to boil her some tea, I couldn't even find a pot. I said, Tidra, honey, is there something I can heat up water for you? And she pulled out this old rusty little bowl thing. Okay, well, I'll do that. And I'm sitting there in this kitchen, I'm thinking, she must have thought the idea of going to the store on a bus with 4 kids, buying healthy food, getting back on the bus, coming and cooking and storing 5 meals in her little freezer. But she never said a word in that whole class, because I think in what happens in their head when we kind of assume what it is they need, they think, well, maybe I'm the only one that has this little tiny freezer, and maybe everybody else can do this, and then they tend to question themselves. She had bought a cat, and I had really questioned that because I thought, I know your financial situation. Having a pet is expensive. And I realized when I was in her house and saw the huge rat droppings everywhere, why we had a cat. And all of a sudden, I wasn't so judgmental anymore. So my experience of mentoring and really working side by side with somebody, I learn way more than I impart, honestly. And it's a very powerful, life-changing thing to the mentor as well as the mentee. Leah on her poster and one of the very first slides showed those big redwood trees. And I love that image because they're the tallest trees you'll ever see. Some of them are bored out so big in the center that cars can drive through them. And so you would anticipate that those roots must just be way down in the ground, but they're actually not. They shoot out sideways and they connect to all the other trees. And it's by connecting to each other that they're able to withstand winds and storms and stay strong and, you know, have holes bored in them and everything. So when I talk to mentors, I'll say, the redwoods teach us we are stronger when we stand together, and we crave connection. And our moms that we work with and other poor, marginalized populations, they need us in the game. They need us desperately helping them and understanding them and standing side by side them. The other thing that I learned is I don't help or fix anymore. I don't say, how can I help? I say, how can I serve? Because helping kind of implies that I have some power that you don't have, that you're broken in some way. You know, serving really, to me, implies I'm in this with you. I want to serve you. I want to serve your goals. I want to get you where you're going. So, you know, I tell mentors, when you want to fix them, they already feel like they're broken. And I love the quote from Mother Teresa where she said, we serve life not because it's broken, but because it's holy. So I've learned a lot, and I wouldn't have learned that if I just donated or worked at an event or served food at a soup kitchen. All really important things, but that connecting the zip codes, I'm convinced, has to happen for real change. And Lonnie is part of that change. So we have a supported employment program at Amethyst Place called 100 Jobs for 100 Moms. And we ask businesses to provide not just a job, but an on-the-job mentor. And we, again, throw the book of supports at our moms. And we asked the employers to really mentor our moms. And Lonnie and her business partner, Kelly, was our second employer. They have hired 9 moms now through the program. They represent half of their workforce. They moved their business from North Kansas City to right around the corner from Amethyst Place, so our moms didn't have to take the bus. I mean, they are the epitome of this 100 Jobs program. And so I'm very pleased to turn this now over to Lonnie.
Thank you, Julie. So when we were talking with Leah about this program today, about the talk and what have you, and the focus and everything, she said, so then I want you to talk about your experience volunteering at Amethyst Place. And so, as she's already explained, I found Amethyst Place through the 100 Jobs program, and you just heard all the logistics around all of that, and we're still involved with the 100 Jobs program. And that was my first touch with this group of women. Through the mentoring done on the job, I began to get engaged in the community because of, you know, either just right around the corner, something was going on, or they needed something or whatever. And so I started working with individuals there at the community at their request. By the time I was a second-year student here, they'd captured my heart, basically. And I knew that I was called to alternative ministry. I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew that I was called to do something in a community of people that were in recovery, people that were looking for a spiritual path, people that were struggling to find a new way of being in the world. And so I formed, with the help of the staff here, I formed an alternative ministry internship, and I engaged Julie and Kim at Amethyst Place to support that ministry, that internship. And so that's how I got involved, and I started showing up 8, 10, 12 hours a week there and doing what they did, and, you know, learning about the programs and about the various women and about the barriers and about the challenges and about all of the issues that I had no knowledge of because of the zip code difference that we were talking about. And I, like many others, had for a number of years thought, well, you donate here and you go help out there and it's all a good thing. But I did not understand the lack of what I'm going to call social capital exchange. And that is the connection piece, that when we do a drive-by, makes us feel good. It may or may not help the individual truly, but it doesn't connect them to anything. And there are studies out now that talk about how connection is the root of addiction. There are studies about, and there have been for years, 60, 70 years now, about the failure to thrive for infants that are not connected to an adult and nurtured. Connection is so important. And so what I found when I started working at Amethyst Place in a volunteer capacity was the need for this connection. And it fit perfectly with the ministry that I wanted to do, because it fits with our second principle and with our fifth principle, which is the second principle is the spark of divine in every man, woman, and child. Does not matter what the outside looks like. Does not matter what the circumstances of their lives are. Does not matter where they came from, what zip code they live in, or anything else. That is an immutable principle. And so that was right there. And then the second one is, the fifth principle, living the truth that we know. Living is an action verb. It's putting it in action. It's not just thinking about the truth that we know. It's not just praying about the truth that we know. And so we know these things. We have this knowledge. We have this compassion. We have these feelings. But what are we doing about it? How can we get connected? So this social capital is a concept that comes up in social entrepreneurship and among other places. But it describes the networks and the connections that each individual brings to a relationship. I know people that you don't know, and you know people I don't know, and I say, hey, do you know somebody that does this or does that, or where I can find whatever. And people that are in this socioeconomic group have limited and small networks, social networks. They don't know bankers necessarily. They don't know, business owners. They don't know people that don't have to work because they've got a partner with a really high-paying job. They don't know professional skills. When I talk to them, they want to be a parole officer, a judge, or a teacher, or a social worker, something. It's that kind of vision is all they ever have had, because that's what's been in their world. And so part of this connection piece is widening their vision by including them in this mentorship, taking them with us. One of the things our business did was we happen to be the poster child right now for social entrepreneurship, because it seems like they think it's a new thing. It's not, but at any rate, we got an award this early this spring, and we took the whole staff, because without the staff, our business doesn't succeed anyway. And they made a big deal out of it. But these people had never been to a black tie event. They'd never been to an event where you have more than one fork at a time. I mean, they have not had that exposure. And they go, oh, wow. And they got to meet a bunch of small business owners that they say, oh, you know what? I don't have to be this or this. I could do that. And this is what social capital brings to the table. It brings your network. It brings your experience. It brings your knowledge. It brings all these things that they would have no way to connect to any other way. And it does that through the compassion and through the showing up and through the being who you are. And so this connection is immensely important. I got connected up because I'm in recovery. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and this is a recovery housing program. I started showing up, doing my internship there, and I realized that that's some place that I could bring who I am to the table and support these women in their journey. Support not because I know more than them, but support because I've walked some of the same path that they have walked. And so they can identify, and they feel connected. And after a few months, they learn to trust. A few months of somebody being there consistently. A few months of somebody sharing stuff that they dare not talk about. Somebody willing to listen to them and not try to fix them and say, yeah, that must have been really hard. Yeah, something like that happened to me too. Would you like to hear about it? These kind of things make people start feeling connected. And I believe that lives are changed because of that. And I've got a couple of examples. One of them is last Sunday morning. I'm standing there cooking breakfast. I get a text message from somebody. I go, she's never texted me before, but she's got my number. And the text message said, "How do you grieve the loss of a relationship?" And I'm going, oh, wow, this is not a text message conversation. But it's an opening. It is a reaching for connection. It is a saying, in my social network, I don't have anybody that knows how to do this. You might, or you could connect me to somebody that does. And so I texted back and said, "You want to talk?" And the phone rang immediately. And so I listened, and we talked, and what came out of the conversation was she said, "I don't know what to do, or more importantly, what not to do." Because as Julie was saying, they're all swimming toward the boat, and they know, not to get diverted off that path. And a relationship is one of the biggest diversions people have. It's the old heartstrings pulling them off this way, the way it used to be, and I used to feel so good over there. And if they do that, they know they're going to fall off the path. But because of her willingness to reach out, she's going to stay on the path. And I believe that that's a life-changing text message, a life-changing moment, because somebody was willing to be connected. I'm trying to think what the other one was here. Oh, so I told my story at a meeting a while back. And we take turns doing that so that people can find points of reference, what they identify with. And I told them in the beginning, I said, I feel really inadequate because lots of you have lived and done and been through things that I have not. But this is my story. So I shared my story. And about 2 days later, I walked into the office and somebody, I don't even know her name yet, brand new there. She said, "I wanted to say thank you for sharing your story the other day." She said, "I am so glad," because she said, "I didn't think I was an addict." And she said, "But you said something that made me realize that that's a part of who I am." And so even when they land in this kind of a place, it is not that they are convinced that they've got a problem. They're convinced their life is not working, but they don't know why necessarily. And they know there's behaviors they can't engage in, but they haven't identified names for it. They haven't identified thinking patterns, error thought we would call it. They haven't identified those pieces so that they can make changes. She identified it because somebody's willing to stay connected in community. So the biggest message that I have is that you can bring your time, treasure, talents to whatever you want to do, but the most important thing is that you bring your social currency, your social capital, the who you are, who you know, not to fix anybody, but to enlarge their vision, to enlarge their view of the world. And I believe that will make changes in people's lives. Jesus said, even the poor you will always have with you. And so here's the opportunity each of you have. There's other communities out there that do other things, that call to your heartstrings, that call to your talents, that call to your experience, where you've been, what you've done, what you want to get involved in. This just happens to be mine. And your job, your challenge, is to go find that place and get connected. Thank you.
We are better and we are stronger when we work together. And my challenge to you today is to serve. You're probably thinking, I don't have the time. I have too much going on. Well, I have a lot going on, and I find the time. I'm a full-time student. I have lots of papers to write. Thank you, professors. I'm not calling any names, just waving in that direction. Probably, I have a lot going on, and I also have a part-time job. Although sometimes that part-time job turns into full-time. I sometimes work 40 hours a week. But I still find time to be of service. I volunteer at John Knox Village once a week, and I love it. I love being of service. So if I can do it, you can do it. And if you're asking yourself, how can I make this happen? Well, I have 2 people here that you can talk to. They will steer you in the right direction. So, thank you, and please serve, serve, and serve. The Fillmores were all about service. They were all about service. So please serve. Thank you. Protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is
well. I am that I am has sent me to this now moment.